March 27, 1995. A beautiful spring morning in Milan. The kind of morning where you grab an espresso, read the paper, start your day like any other. Maurizio Gucci, 46 years old, heir to one of fashion's most legendary empires, arrives at his office building on Via Palestro. He's dressed impeccably as always. He steps out of his car, exchanges pleasantries with his doorman, Giuseppe Onorato. He starts climbing the steps to the entrance, and then a man approaches from behind. 3 shots, 2 to the back. As Maurizio turns, one final shot to his face. He collapses on the marble steps. The doorman rushes to help. The hitman shoots him too. Then the assassin calmly walks back to the green Jaguar and drives away. Maurizio Gucci, one of the most powerful men in fashion, is dead. Executed in broad daylight in one of Milan's most prestigious neighborhoods. The doorman survives, but can barely describe the shooter. The immediate question, who would want the Gucci heir dead? Business rivals? Family feuds? The Gucci dynasty was notorious for internal warfare. But investigators would soon discover that the person who wanted Maurizio Gucci dead was in some business competitor or mafia connection. It was someone much closer, someone who once promised to love him forever, his ex-wife. And the story of how she went from fairy tale bride to cold-blooded killer is darker than you could imagine. To understand how we get from that wedding photo to murder, you need to know who these people were. And honestly, their story started like a movie. Maurizio Gucci was born into one of fashion's most powerful dynasties. His grandfather, Guccio Gucci, had founded the brand in 1921. By the 1970s, Gucci was global. Those interlocking G's were as recognizable as any symbol in fashion. But behind the glamour, the family was a mess. Lawsuits, infighting, betrayals. Think Succession, but with leather goods. Enter Patrizia Reggiani. Born in 1948, she was born into wealth. Her mother was a waitress before marrying a wealthy trucking company owner who adopted Patrizia. But by her 20s, Patrizia had transformed herself into a socialite. She was beautiful, ambitious, and absolutely determined to marry into power. In 1970, at a party in Milan, she met Maurizio. He was instantly smitten. She was gorgeous, confident, magnetic. His family hated her, thought she was a gold digger. His father even tried to stop the wedding. They married anyway in 1972, and for a while, it really was a fairy tale. The 1970s and early 80s were golden. They lived in a penthouse in New York, had a yacht, flew private. Patrizia became known as the Joan Collins of Monte Carlo, dripping in furs, jewels, designer everything. They had 2 daughters. On the surface, perfect. Patrizia famously said, "I'd rather cry in a Rolls Royce than be happy on a bicycle." And she meant it. Her entire identity became wrapped up in being Mrs. Gucci. The name, the status, the lifestyle, that was her. But beneath the champagne and designer gowns, something was rotting. Because being a Gucci wasn't just glamorous, it was suffocating. The family infighting was getting worse. The company was struggling. And Maurizio was starting to feel trapped. Not just by the family business, by his wife. In 1983, Maurizio's father died, and he eventually gained control of the company. You think that'd be the dream, right? Running one of the world's most iconic fashion houses. It was a nightmare. The company was bleeding money. Family members were suing each other. Maurizio was in over his head, making risky decisions, accumulating debt. The pressure was crushing. And at home, Patrizia was becoming impossible. As the business stress mounted, she became more controlling, more paranoid about maintaining their lifestyle. Her spending spiraled: furs, jewelry, designer everything, desperate to project wealth even as their finances crumbled. She wasn't just spending money. She was trying to spend her way into permanent status, as if enough Hermes bags could make her untouchable. Then in May 1985, Maurizio did something that would set everything in motion. He told Patrizia he was going on a business trip, just a few days. Nothing unusual. He never came back. Maurizio sent a friend to tell her the marriage was over. He didn't have the courage to tell her himself. He'd already moved out, already started an affair with an interior designer named Paola Franchi. Can you imagine? One day you're Mrs. Gucci, living the dream. The next day, your husband abandons you via messenger like you're some business associate he's firing. For Patrizia, this wasn't just divorce. This was identity death. She wasn't Patrizia Reggiani, whoever that was. She was Mrs. Gucci. The name was everything. The status was everything. Without Maurizio, without that name, Who was she? The divorce took years. 1985 to 1991, vicious and public. Patrizia fought for everything: the houses, the money, the social position. She told friends she'd never give up the Gucci name. In 1994, the divorce was finalized. She got $1.47 million per year in alimony. To most people, that's winning the lottery. To Patrizia Reggiani, it was an insult. She wanted more. She wanted revenge. She wanted him to suffer the way she'd suffered. And when she heard Maurizio was planning to marry Paola, that he was going to give another woman the title of Mrs. Gucci, that's when Patrizia Reggiani decided that if she couldn't have Maurizio Gucci, no one would. So here is the question. How does a socialite who has never worked a day in her life hire a hitman? You can't exactly Google "assassin near me," enter Giuseppina Pina or Rima. Pina was Patrizia's friend, and I use that word loosely. She was a psychic, a tarot card reader, the kind of person who moved in different circles than Patrizia's usual crowd. She knew people, connected people. Patrizia had been confiding in Pina for years about the divorce, her rage, her humiliation. And sometime in 1995, those conversations shifted from venting to something much darker. Patrizia approached Pina about getting rid of a problem. At first, Pina thought she meant cursing him, some kind of spiritual revenge. But no, Patrizia wanted him dead. And so Pina assembled what can only be described as the world's most incompetent murder crew. Ivano Savioni, a hotel doorman who dabbled in crime on the side. He became the organizer. Benedetto Cirallo, a pizza shop owner's son and small-time criminal. He'd be the triggerman. Orazio Sakala, the getaway driver. And here's where it gets darkly absurd. Patrizia haggled over the price. They wanted 600 million lira, about $375,000. She negotiated down. The woman who spent thousands on handbags was bargaining for a discount on murdering her ex-husband. They settled on around 375 million lira, paid in installments. For weeks, they surveilled Maurizio, learned his routine, when he arrived at his office, when he left, the building layout, escape routes. They even test ran the route. March 27, 1995. The day arrives. Cirallo wakes up, has breakfast. Just another day of work, except his job today is murder. Maurizio kisses Paola goodbye. He drives to his office. He parks. He greets his doorman. He starts up those marble steps. The green Jaguar pulls up. Cirallo gets out. 3 shots. It's over in seconds. Cirallo gets back in the Jaguar and drives away. Maurizio Gucci bleeds out on marble steps outside his own office. And Patrizia? She was at home, waiting for confirmation that the problem had been solved. The investigation began immediately. The doorman survived and could describe the shooter, but barely. Medium height, medium build, dark clothes. Not much to go on. Police started looking at the obvious suspects. Maurizio had plenty of enemies, business rivals, angry family members. The Gucci clan had tried to have each other removed from the company before maybe someone took it literally. Patrizia showed up at the funeral, veiled and dramatic. She played the role perfectly, the devastated ex-wife, still in love, mourning what could have been. But the investigators noticed something. Her grief scene, performed, too theatrical. Her emotions didn't quite ring true. Still, they had nothing concrete. Months passed, then a year. The case was going cold. The conspirators were getting comfortable, thinking they'd gotten away with it. Then in January 1997, 2 years after the murder, everything unraveled. And it started with a lover's quarrel. Pina, the psychic, had a boyfriend. They got into a fight, and in a moment of anger or guilt or stupidity, she confessed. She told him everything: the murder plot, the money, Patrizia's role, all of it. He went to the police. And suddenly, investigators had their break. The conspiracy unraveled like pulling a thread on a sweater. They arrested Savioni. He flipped, gave up Cirallo. Cirallo was arrested. Sakala arrested. Pina arrested. January 31st, 1997. Police arrive at Patrizia's apartment to arrest her for murder. She was genuinely shocked. Not that she'd been caught, but that her co-conspirators had betrayed her. In her mind, they'd all agreed. How dare they talk? The evidence mounted quickly. Bank records showing the payments. Phone records showing the planning calls. Testimony from all 4 conspirators, each confirming Patrizia was the mastermind. And then investigators found something chilling in Patrizia's Cartier diary. On March 28th, 1995, the day after Maurizio was murdered, she'd written one word: Paradiso, Paradise. The trial began in May 1998, and it was an international sensation. Fashion, murder, wealth, betrayal. This had everything. And Patrizia, she treated it like a fashion show. Designer outfits every day, perfect hair and makeup. She'd wave to cameras, pose for photos. This woman was on trial for murder and acted like she was attending the Met Gala. As prosecutors laid out the evidence, the payments, the planning, the conspiracy, Patrizia sat there, calm and defiant. She showed zero remorse. Not for Maurizio, not for his daughters losing their father, nothing. The prosecution's case was devastating. 4 conspirators all testified she was the mastermind. Financial records proved she paid them. Her own diary proved her satisfaction. And then Patrizia said something that shocked even hardened court observers. When asked why she'd ordered the hitman to shoot Maurizio in the face, she replied, "My eyesight is not so good. I didn't want to miss my husband's face." She wanted to make sure she could see his face when looking at crime scene photos. Let that sink in. Her lawyers tried arguing she wasn't responsible. She had a brain tumor removed in 1992. The surgery, they claimed, affected her judgment, made her paranoid and violent. But the prosecution showed this wasn't some impulsive act of insanity. This was planned for months, negotiated, financed, executed with cold precision. November 3rd, 1998. The verdict, guilty of arranging murder, sentenced to 29 years in prison. For the first time, Patrizia looked genuinely shocked. She truly believed that being Patrizia Reggiani, that her status and wealth would somehow protect her. She was wrong. Patrizia went to prison. But even there, she refused to drop the act. She kept her hair dyed, wore designer prison clothes as much as possible. When offered a work program to reduce her sentence, she famously refused, saying, "I've never worked a day in my life, and I'm not going to start now." In 2014, she could have gotten day release if she'd take a job. She refused. She'd rather stay in prison than work. Finally, in October 2016, after serving 18 years, Patrizia was released. She was 68 years old. And where is she now? Living in Milan, still collecting the alimony from the Gucci estate, about $1.2 million per year. Still maintaining her lifestyle. Still unapologetic. In interviews, she says she doesn't regret what happened. She's blamed Maurizio for forcing her to act. She's called herself a victim. Meanwhile, the Gucci brand, completely severed from the Gucci family now. The company was sold off years ago. It's thriving, billions in revenue, one of fashion's biggest names. But there's not a single Gucci family member involved anymore. Maurizio's daughters, Alessandra and Allegra, inherited his estate. They've stayed out of the spotlight, refusing to engage with their mother for years. Paola Franchi, the woman Maurizio was going to marry, never recovered from the trauma. She's spoken about how the murder destroyed her life too. The 4 accomplices all served their sentences. Chirolo, the actual triggerman, got life but was released in 2020 after serving 26 years. And Patrizia Reggiani walks free in Milan, wearing designer clothes paid for by the man she had murdered. So why did she do it? What makes someone go from "I love you" to "I want you dead"? The psychology here is actually fascinating and terrifying. Patrizia Reggiani's entire identity was external. She wasn't a person with intrinsic value to herself. She was Mrs. Gucci. That was her entire sense of self. When Maurizio left, she didn't just lose a husband. She experienced what psychologists call identity death. The person she believed herself to be ceased to exist. And human beings will do almost anything to avoid that feeling. Add narcissism to that mix. Narcissists can't handle rejection. It's not just painful, it's world-ending. How dare Maurizio leave her? How dare he choose someone else? How dare he try to be happy without her? She got $1.47 million a year. She could have lived well, but it wasn't about money, not really. It was about power and control. If she couldn't control Maurizio in life, she controlled when he died. When she heard he was going to remarry, that was the final trigger. Another woman would get the title Mrs. Gucci, unacceptable. So she had him killed, not for money, not for freedom, for ego, for revenge. Because if she couldn't have the life she wanted, why should he? Patrizia's story is a cautionary tale about what happens when your entire identity is wrapped up in external things. Status, brands, titles, names. When you are what you own rather than who you are. In a weird way, Patrizia Reggiani was ahead of her time. Today, we're surrounded by people whose entire identity is their social media presence, their lifestyle brand, their external projection. What happens when that's threatened? The story has become a cultural phenomenon. Books, documentaries, and in 2021, a major Hollywood movie with Lady Gaga playing Patrizia. The Black Widow of Gucci has become iconic in the worst possible way. And Patrizia, she criticized the movie for Lady Gaga not meeting with her first. Even in her portrayal as a murderer, she wanted control of the narrative. The audacity is almost impressive. Here's the most disturbing part. Patrizia has never expressed genuine remorse. Not for Maurizio, not for her daughters who lost their father, not for destroying multiple lives. She once said, "I'd rather cry in a Rolls Royce than be happy on a bicycle," and she meant it. She'd rather be a murderer with money than an ordinary person with peace. Would she do it again? Based on her complete lack of remorse, her continued justification of her actions, her refusal to take responsibility? Yeah, she probably would. The woman who wanted to be Gucci forever became known as the Black Widow, and she's still out there, walking free, collecting her checks, and sleeping soundly at night. That's the scariest part of all.